Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ushma Tyagi and I shall be your host today. Welcome to Season 3 of the StrategINK Digital Dialogues webinar series in association with Automation Anywhere, a global leader in intelligent automation and RPA solutions. For the second episode today, the webinar theme is Powering Automation with Cloud. That is, how does cloud-based infrastructure help in successful orchestration of robotic process automation? So over the next 1 hour or so, you can expect to hear IT leaders and experts share their insights, experiences, and business benefits from RPA on cloud, advantages such as lower infrastructure cost, ease of deployment, less maintenance, and lower upgrade costs, apart from security and scalability of their digital strategy. Now, without further ado, I hand you over to Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer, StrategINK Solutions, to take the floor, introduce our two eminent guest speakers today, and engage with them to curate insights for you, our audience. Our guest IT leaders today are Mr. Tarun Pandey, Executive Vice President IT, Aditya Birla Capital, and Mr. Siva Subramanian M, Global CIO, VA Tech Wabag Limited. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello, good morning and welcome. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer at StrategINK. And today, to have dialogues and chart the course of the future by powering automation with the cloud, I'm going to be in conversation with none other than Tarun Pandey, Executive Vice President IT and Aditya Birla Capital. Tarun, welcome. Delighted that you could join us.
Thank you.
And Siva Subramanian, M, CIO, VA Tech Wabag. Siva, welcome. Delighted that you could join us today.
Thank you, Arjun. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. And I'm directly going to kind of come to it is, Tarun, with your permission, if I could come to you. Well, really, in seeking the new normal, organizations have been taking measures to adapt to the changing landscape of how work is done in really. And to respond to challenges brought on by this disruption that we've seen, businesses are seeking out cloud-based solutions now more than ever, not just to get through disruption and move forward on revival, but to also recover and thrive. Now, each of you have progressed significantly in your cloud journeys. How, in your estimate, is the cloud a brilliant foundation to power automation such that will drive scale and agility for organizations? Tarun Pandey.
Thanks. I don't know why you always pick me to be the guinea pig, but I'll try my chances. See, as you know, cloud is, I would call it an abused word now. Okay, it's been there for such a long time, but IT guys have been pushing for it, but businesses had not been adopting it. But last 8 months, blessings in disguise for all the IT guys and for all the cloud service providers. Because when you couldn't have your people reaching data centers, when you couldn't have things to monitor and understand that there is a breakage and getting the spare parts, people were left with no choices. And that's when people said, when IT guys proposed moving things on the cloud, it made a lot of sense to the business heads. While this was one reason, the other was also that you don't have to invest time in buying new hardware. You don't have to invest time in configuring because most of the things come with pre-installed OSs and other things. And at times, a lot of applications also are pre-installed. That's the normal IT. If you're looking at going into the data and analytics side, you have a lot of algorithms already pre-built, which you can use, tweak and use. So the time to market becomes much more faster.
Indeed.
Okay. So those were the added advantages that people saw. People who had already started this journey some time back, it was much more easier for them. And all the questions or the doubts that people had of migrating from on-prem to the cloud and other things were put to rest at this point of time. Obviously, being technology or being any, whether it is technology or when human beings fail, technology can also fail at times. But people learned over this during this challenging time that it was just one step away, maybe slightly challenging for people who had not done it, but it was just another step in the journey of moving things. That got them a lot of resiliency. That got them a lot of okay. Biggest advantage: you don't need a DR. You don't need another site because cloud is always providers ensure that there is.
Omnipresent, really.
Yeah, it's
It's a very
omnipresent.
fascinating point because I'm going to take that to Siva. Siva, I'm going to come to you. Is and the whole concept of challenges and resilience that Tarun brought up. In your view, within a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud kind of an environment, or even perhaps an on-prem concept altogether, how, in your view, do you think process automation that is powered by the cloud can help drive, like Tarun said, time to market, scale, and agility? Siva.
Yeah, thank you, Arjun. So, like Tarun has added most of the points. So one thing is what the organization is looking at everywhere, reducing cost. How can I reduce the cost, and why should I invest so much infrastructure in terms of server, storage, network, and all that? So that is getting reduced, and time to market is already said. And another thing is on the scalability. So that is one major thing. We don't need to expand as and when you need. The internal customer satisfaction is another things which I feel it is adding value to the cloud. And also that if you look at the deployment perspective, you don't need to have a huge manpower or a huge kind of setup for deployment. So that is easy for the deployment as and when needed. It's been done. So that is these are the things which is one thing, and it also increases the productivity of the people at the business front, so they don't need to wait for anything. So that is one. Earlier there used to be kind of dilemma with the business users or the top management, like, what will happen to my data, what about the confidentiality, and all that is now I think is being removed. And earlier even work from home used to be the kind of dream for the EPC kind of industry, but it has come true in recent past. So that has been proved that it is possible working from home even for the EPC sector. So that is only the mindset from the people, so that has been removed. Coming back to this RPA thing, kind of, so one is scalability, lower cost, and kind of reduce time to market, and internal customer satisfaction. I would say these are the nutshell points which adds value to the business.
Very interesting because Tarun, I'm going to come to you. Is one of the fundamentals of Indian industry really is that innovation is now center stage. And with innovation, you bring the whole concept of the convergence of human capital, which is your workforce, and technology kind of converging to drive innovation. In that kind of a scenario or an evolution journey, really, how important is process automation in your view to drive this in a more scalable manner, in a more sustainable manner?
Uh, Important, very important. But more important than that, okay, is a mindset to change.
Outstanding.
You bring in an RPA, and if you don't change your processes to make them much more linkable to a automation.
You just hijacked my next question, by the way.
I know you, sir. That's the reason I preempt another question coming to me.
Please carry on, sir.
So that's the biggest issue. People have been talking of automation, process automation, new terminology, RPA. Okay. Old wine in a new bottle. Really, if you ask me. What the Excel macros used to do was also automation. Okay. But that didn't reduce dependency of the finance guys on Excel and everything. You still had more people coming in and for hiring. Okay. If the culture doesn't change, if the mindset doesn't change, and if you don't adapt your business process, make them nimble, to be open to automation, nothing is going to succeed. Second, yes, automation is important, but have you ensured that your legacy systems are tuned and geared up to undergo that automation? Old monolithic applications cannot be automated. You need to change the whole architecture. You need to start moving in towards a microservices based architecture or an API based architecture so that you can automate things fast. So yes, it is important, but and the good point to look at it, 8 months of this lockdown or this COVID has really proven that if there is a will, people are willing to adapt. Customers have adopted non-physical meetings, non-in-presence meetings. Okay, your sales teams have adapted because they still have to sell, they still have to ensure their targets to get their commission, and they're still selling. Okay, in certain places, yes, it might not be possible. Certain places would definitely require. One of the things that has happened, there was video KYC being in financial services. Video KYC had never taken off.
I
Last,
remember.
last 8 months, it's taken like a rocket flying high. Okay, so necessity is the mother of all inventions or all evils also. Okay, and that's what has proven. If you are willing to adapt, if you are willing to look at technology as a friend, and if you're willing to use that technology and leverage it, technology will give you automation. Technology doesn't mean that only implementing a system. And if you're willing to change your processes and be nimble enough, automation is going to be the thing.
Outstanding. Because Shiva, I'm going to bring that very question to you.
Before that, just I witnessed Tarun's point. I had done one of the there is some latest technological trading platform which is available. I just did the entire login on my spouse's account in within 15 minutes. The
Is that
entire KYC. It's like, you know what? You just will have to put it and put a sheet like this, and there is a number comes. You just take it. That is authenticity. So it is life is made so simple that with not
outstanding?
even 15 minutes, the account is open.
See, Arjun, I'll barge in here. Sorry.
Leave that.
Okay. Smartphones have been in evolution for quite some time. They're being used massively now. You don't have to go and teach the user of the buyer of a smartphone how to use that. Okay.
Absolutely.
The simplicity in design, the simplicity in UI, okay, and small things. The whole microservices based thing that I was talking about. If the biggest challenge that organizations face and IT guys face is that they make it too complicated. Okay, it becomes a black box. So you have to ensure that you have to write manuals for it. You have to write, go and do training, user training, technical training. You have on this phone of mine, I would have probably what 100 applications. I've never looked at a user manual. I never had to undergo a training, and that's with most of us. So that's what automation is supposed to do. Make it so simple that it is so easy to adapt and use.
That's exactly what I'm going to take to you, Shiva. Shiva, it's the whole concept of the fact that there exists a very clear understanding that process automation, solutions and softwares and bots that can kind of make life easier for the workforce do exist. But in your view and in your guidance and in your fairly evolved journey of automation, what is your essential guidance to this wonderful audience that's listening in and tuning in today of senior IT folks on what are the mindsets that need to be addressed, the softer aspects for automation on the cloud to really take off, for more widespread adapt or adaptation as well as adoption?
Okay. See, a major thing is on the mindset. Generally, people will suppose, let's take an example of accounts payable process.
Indeed.
If that is the simplest thing which we can do the automation. It's been there for quite a long time, as Tarun said, it's a old wine in a new bottle. So the point here is people will think that what will I do? If everything is the entire account AP process being done through the by the bots and RPA, so what does the person who is sitting there will do? So that is the kind of uh, fear or the fear factor comes into picture, and it's a mindset, and there is a huge change management effort is required.
It's a misplaced fear, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there used to be some sayings, no, earlier the cart used to be there, now vehicle has come, so which means that what happened to the people? So instead of putting it like this, we just will have to put left, right, and stuff like that. So we'll have to just see how we can drive the car. So that is a kind of thing. So one major thing for the people who are in the product vendors, I have a couple of things. See, RPA have been there for quite a long time, and what we need of the R is how do we enable, or how do we impart the kind of AI into this RPA? For example, if you look at the major engineering portion of the work, most of the things are mundane work. Suppose let's take an example of I'm just building some particular building. So the structure, everything is going to remain same. Or for let's take an example of water treatment plant. If I'm saying that I'm going to put desalination of water of 100 mld. Okay, and the components are going to be the same, and the design is also going to be similar. But is there a possibility where RPA inbuilt with the AI can do that? So it is going to have a huge impact to the organization in terms of financial, as well as in terms of the time to reduce to market, as well as and the how the productivity, performance, everything is going to be addressed. This anything if you look at in the engineering or design, it is a long lead items. So even some small change in the design, it's going to cost a bomb for the organization. So it is direct hit into the P&L.
Interesting.
So
Tarun, I am coming to you on something that's on everybody's mind. And especially now, you come from the financial services sector with your very vast experience. And you yourself mentioned when you start off saying data is the new digital asset that's going to power future growth, future innovation, and so on. In a multi-cloud kind of an environment where you have workloads that are fairly distributed, that's number one. On the second part, like you again said, your workforce today is equally distributed because everybody is working remotely. Siva, of course, has been in office for the last 2.5 months. The implications on security when you're trying to drive process automation for superior results, how, in your view, would you advise folks in the audience today and industry folks to kind of bring that all together to forge a successful journey with the confidence of security?
Why do you have to ask me the tough questions? Okay. As per me, what worked before will not work in future. Okay, you need to adapt. Work from home was always a leisure before. Okay, you didn't feel like going to office.
Down upon.
Looked down upon. But today, that's the norm. Organizations, and you've heard of lot many organizations, Indian organizations, saying that they're shutting shop offices and they're telling people to work. I think Goenkas are one of those. They said they're telling people to work from home indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
They're shutting down offices. You don't need to come to office. So there are going to be very few offices. That brings into the other question that you asked about. What worked before doesn't work now. Okay, earlier it was only perimeter security, database security. You have to look at application security in a different way. You can't give monolithic applications, so you have to give modules, small modules, or API based or microservices based applications. And that brings into the last question of endpoint, because you are using something, I'm using something, at times I'm using mobile, at times I'm using the laptop. So that endpoint security is going to be paramount. And that's a very tricky question, because when it comes to hand phones, tabs, and other things, most of them, majority of them are personally owned.
Yeah.
So how do you ensure that you still prevent that device from your organization security point of view, but ensure that the person gets the flexibility to do his work, okay, and do whatever he wants, still ensure that the device is protected. You can't, earlier thing was, okay, I have deployed in a solution which prevents your mobile from taking a picture or taking a printout and all those stuff. And then when I wipe it out, all your personal data also goes. That can't be done. Okay, you'll have to containerize the applications. You'll have to talk about the gateways, which are the network gateways have to be looked into a much more secured manner, because it is no more many to one connection. It's a many to many. Okay, so this concept has to be really thought of.
Very interesting.
Easier to say, but a nightmare.
And to do, because I'm going to take that exactly to you, Siva. And Tarun's right, really. It's easier said than done. But in your view, how would you advise your peers, your colleagues from industry to kind of reimagine the very framework of security, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence infused automation on the cloud layer by itself? What is your view?
Tarun has covered most of the points, so I think there is nothing is left. So Tarun is anyways evangelist, so now he has covered most of the points. I don't know what he has not covered. See, the main thing is earlier since it is in our home, so it is we are responsible for the entire security. Now that there is a partner who is providing the kind of services from his own cloud, so there has always been a dispute or kind of this is your land or this is my land. So till it's like a simple example. I'll say you are in a kind of gated community and you have a flat, and what security is provided by the apartment or the flat the association, and what security is provided at your house. So what he can give you is only if somebody is coming, he can only give a gate pass. If you are agreeing the gate pass, then he can come and he can come to your flat and he can do whatever he wants, not only your flat and neighbors flats as well. So the point here is, so what is the level of security which you have? Only at the gate, or even at the lift, or at the block level, or is there any other security mechanism? Somebody has to come down and pick it, bring the our visitors. So that is the kind of data, or what is the data which is passing between you and cloud, and from cloud to the end consumer. And that is the level of things. I think even the cloud providers need to have kind of improved security even at the flat level, in a simple analogy. So
Stick with me there, Siva, because there is a very important question which I'm going to come to you and then I'm going to take to Tarun again. Is see the migration to the cloud gave us instant agility.
absolutely.
Automation by itself also promises scale and agility. When these two kind of come together, what do you expect to change in the future in terms of business outcomes? The cloud and intelligence infused automation coming together. There's two pluses. What is an incremental business value inflection to Indian industry that you see coming in the near future?
One is dependency on the IT as a function is going to reduce, because most of things are going to be in the cloud, and the most of the infra kind of resources are going to be kind of outsourced. So that is one. Second thing is on the people can expect, the business can expect the agility in terms of the speed and agility for any business outcomes that the business needs. And third is obviously the return on investment is very high,
Good.
and in terms of, yeah, in terms of kind of investment is going to be much lesser when compared with your on-prem. So
I
that these are the
almost
four
come
things
to
which is
you
going to
with
be.
the same question, really. Cloud gave us significant benefits. Automation, process automation by itself gives us significant benefits. When these two kind of are coupled, how do you see the acceleration taking on unprecedented proportions? Tarun Pandey, sir.
Any change brings in its own benefits and its own pitfalls. Okay, acceleration is going to be there because, as I said earlier, time reduced time to market. Okay, it other way it will accelerate is because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every point of time. You'll have something. It's much more easier to customize and calibrate something to fine tune it to your requirements than creating a new one. Okay, so and with the explosion of data happening, people who are really looking into data as an diamond field or an oil field, obviously yes, there are going to be advantages to a lot of it. But I disagree, or rather I have a different view from Shiva on the investment and other stuff, because nothing comes for free. I have seen in my own experience and in others' experience that when people talk about investment, they only talk about the capex. Okay, because that's you
You're loading it upfront.
you're loading it upfront, and then you are there's a specific financial term that I'm forgetting.
Very true. Yeah, it's directly
You
hitting the.
capitalize it. You capitalize it over a period of time. Okay, but what really hits the organization is the OPEX. Okay, uh, easy to say that, okay, cloud reduces the cost, but then the cloud charges you in so many different ways. Every transaction cost. Okay, you can capitalize your hardware, and then it becomes a zero value, and you still continue using it over a period of time. Okay, you depreciate it for 3 years, you made it zero, but the hardware actually works for 5 years. Okay, so it's all financial accounting game. Okay, it depends on how you look at it, but does it reduce cost? I don't think so.
But
Okay,
process automation could reduce significant costs.
I
Because
don't
you're
think so. I don't
already
think so. I don't think so. It is diverting the cost from one to another. You might say that it reduces the cost, but it's actually diverting the cost from one head to the other head. Okay. You'll remove it from technology budget and put it into an operations budget. Okay. But I don't think so. It reduces the cost. But what it really brings in, obviously, is less human errors. Okay. It
indeed.
increases time to market. It reduces the time to market, and when you equate that into a monetary terms, that's where the profit or the benefit comes in. Okay, actual cost going in might not be less. It can at times be more, but if you are really able to calibrate things in the right manner and put a monetary value to all these things, benefits that come in, obviously yes, that's when is the cost. If you look at it as a cost advantage upfront, I disagree.
Interesting, interesting. Because, gentlemen, I would seriously love to continue this conversation, but I do have you on the clock. I know you have hard schedules, and we are now taking live questions. I have Vikas Malhotra asking in a question. I'll bring it to. I could bring it to both of you. Really, his question really is: how should organizations try to figure out how to? What are the correct processes to even automate in the first place? Shiva, you want to take a stab at that? How do you identify what are the processes that can be automated?
See, it basically comes from the bottom up approach. What is the business pain which is already there with the different functions? So it has to be bottom up. It cannot be top down approach. As far as this particular process is concerned, one process. Another one is the way you look at it as a the top down approach, where the strategy can be pushed from the top management, saying that this is what we should do it, and this is what how we'll have to.
What should be
Yeah,
automated?
yeah. So the bottom up approach can be more successful because people get a buy in for that, and there is the real business need and they have a business pain and which we are serving, so that is fine. So other one is we are saying that this is good for health, that is good for health. We don't generally do it, right? If I have a pain, obviously I'll take more extra care and do that. The both the ways, it again depends on the organization. It helps. So
Very
that's
nice.
my
Do you want to take a stab at that? How should organizations even try to figure out what to automate in the first place? How do you kind of approach that?
See, it depends. Let me give an example. um, 2003, 2002, uh, we didn't have these NEFTs and all those stuff. So customer use, say you're staying in Guwahati, you want to buy an insurance policy, you go and give a check at your Guwahati branch office, so it will courier it to you, and it couriers it to the central office. The central office processor. Typically, a policy issuance used to take 15 days. People were still happy with it. Okay. Uh, Certain few cases happened that between the policy check submission and issuance, there might have been cases. So there were certain erratic cases where there was a call to be taken whether should you insure or should you not, should you pay or not pay the claim. So, but then someone in the industry had a thought, why don't we reduce that? Okay. So from 15 days, people started working on 3 days, 10 days, 7 days, to now it's a few minutes. Okay. It's and if you are unable to issue a policy online in 5 minutes, a customer goes away. So, as Shiva said, obviously it is a need of it is a combination of multiple things. It's a combination of what are your pain areas. It is a combination of what is it that you want to do. Okay, it is a combination of what does the business think is a priority. If your priority is faster customer servicing, okay, and if your priority is customer happiness, not even satisfaction, then you start working from that perspective and then start looking at what are my bottlenecks, where I can improve things, or where are my most manual errors happening. Okay, so what is the reason? So it's a process of understanding the pain areas. It's a process of knowing what you want to do and where you want to go. It's a process of being very, very self-conscious and honest and understanding, okay, these are the manual errors and I want to rectify these manual errors. It's also a process of a huge dissemination of a cultural change in formation.
Mindset you spoke about.
Okay, it's a mindset. It is people fear that their jobs will get lost. Okay, some jobs will get remodified into something else. It's
Reskilling.
actually okay. It's reskilling and rescaling both. Okay, so it is, there is no fixed rule that I can put in on what to automate, but I think it's a matter of what the organization feels is important. It's a matter of what are your pain areas. It's a matter of what improvements in which areas you want to bring in, and it's a matter of outward looking. What is it that you want to do for your customer? What is it that you want to do for your stakeholders? And then merge it with the internal stakeholders and see what process changes without actually changing a business line. At times, it is also going into a new business line. Okay.
Indeed, I couldn't agree more on that. Thank you so much. Because I hope that Tarun and Siva were able to adequately address your question, because that pretty much is what we have time for. Siva, Tarun, it has been nothing short of a privilege, and it's been so much fun talking to both of you, old friends. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are delighted. Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you. Thank you, well.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank
And
you,
to the,
Arjun. So it's our pleasure.
thank you. And to the audience, stay tuned. We'll be back with the next segment in just a moment.
Take care. Be safe, everyone.
Yeah.
See you.
Take care. Be safe.
Thank you, Arjun, and guest speakers for an insightful panel discussion on your experiences with automation leveraging enterprise cloud deployments for reducing IT overhead costs, scaling IT processes up and down as needed to optimize IT asset usage, improving flexibility of IT with more frequent releases of business features, and increasing quality of service to users through the self healing nature of solutions. Great insights indeed. Dear delegates, do remember to fill out the feedback form at the end of today's webinar episode. Your feedback is invaluable as it helps us to improve the content, structure, and presentation of our webinars and virtual conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is a fireside chat with a senior executive from our partner Automation Anywhere. In keeping with the theme of today's episode, Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer StrategINK, will be engaging in a conversation with Mr. Ganesh Tyagarajan, Vice President Cloud Channels at Automation Anywhere. In this chat, Mr. Vishwanathan will engage Mr. Tyagarajan in a discussion on the key tactics an organization may adopt to achieve optimal business outcomes with robotics on cloud. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, your host. And in segment two, I'm going to be in conversation with none other than Ganesh Tyagarajan, Vice President of Cloud Channels at Automation Anywhere. Ganesh, welcome and delighted that you could join us given your schedule.
Thank you, Arjun. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Ganesh, I come to you with a very important set of conversations that we've just had in the previous segment, where we've had very eminent folks from the industry hold forth on how this entire orchestration of cloud architecture is, in fact, accelerating organizational abilities to drive forward a very sustainable and robust paradigm as far as automation is concerned. Now, I'm going to come to you with the very first question first, which is that how, in your view, and given your ability and your daily conversations with various folks from the industry, how do you view this entire convergence of cloud architecture and process automation kind of leading to superior business outcomes? Ganesh Tyagarajan.
Great question, Arjun. Thank you for the lead up. You're absolutely right. If you look at what we are going through today, in the last 8 months or so with the pandemic, right? Cisco just came out with a brand new report. I don't know if you've read it. They're actually saying about 90 to 95% of all workloads on the cloud will actually be software as a service. It's just redefining the entire landscape for an enterprise today. Anyway, we're in the right time, right? So every enterprise wants to be as agile as possible. They really want to focus on customer satisfaction, which is their main mantra now, especially given that we are right in the middle of the pandemic. They want to focus more on compliance and audits, extremely faster business intelligence. Now, how are they really focused on this, right? So we're actually starting to see applications being moved to the cloud. So why not take the digital workforce to the cloud? And that is very important because we are actually seeing a lot of companies looking at products which are built in a cloud washed manner. And that's not the right way to look at it, really. You have to be cloud native. And the cloud native architecture is extremely superior in a lot of different ways. Since you spoke about architecture, right? So cloud native architecture products really are built from the ground up. So I'll just give you an example of what we do at Automation Anywhere. From an architecture perspective, we've been very, very passionate about making sure that we are as open sourced as possible. We are not a cloud washed architecture platform or a product that sits on the cloud, which is just a little bit of a lift and shift, as you can see many other products in the market today. We're completely microservices architected, and that's very, very critical for enterprises to really look at it today because it's much, much more scalable, especially if you use an approach like a Kubernetes, which is an open source framework.
Indeed.
Very easily pluggable, very easily integratable to various applications for an enterprise, which is why the cloud native architecture is extremely critical than a cloud washed architecture. It helps you innovate much, much faster. It is much more easier to innovate. The microservices cloud architecture helps you build many more artificial intelligence models. It helps you build a lot more command packages, which everybody in an enterprise can really use for simple little process automation, since you said process automation, right? A microservices architecture on the cloud helps you in bringing a lot more machine learning components, which is where the industry really is gravitating towards. It helps you add a lot more components like an NLP, right? Natural language, essentially. So overall, a cloud services, cloud native architecture is more about bringing in hyper automation on the cloud, which is where a lot of enterprises are really gravitating towards. And it is our own responsibility as product companies to help them through the digital transformation journey through a cloud native architecture, and which is why it is extremely important to choose a platform and a product which is written ground up, which is completely cloud native and not cloud washed.
It's interesting that you mentioned this because I'm going to pick out a couple of the very powerful points that you made there about the whole concepts of innovation and agility. And you, like Ganesh, you also said, Indian industry today is poised for a revival of sorts. That's well long overdue. And you've established the fact that cloud native architecture is the way forward. Now, when you kind of look at revival, revival essentially stands on two pillars. The first, all the more important today, is both scale as well as agility. And well, it's quite the dichotomy of sorts where you look at scale and agility on the same parallel paths. And on the other hand, you have uh, the whole concepts of a multi-hybrid cloud kind of an orientation that we're seeing across industries. How do you kind of piece together these complex parts of the link to kind of make it work seamlessly? Because nobody can afford a disruption of any sorts anymore.
Absolutely. So the cloud is really redefining agility now, right? I mean, for obvious reasons, we are where we are last 8 months. Enterprises are really starting to redefine the terminology of agility. They want to be more agile. And the basic building block of that now, better late than never, is moving a lot of things to the cloud. When I say a lot of things, we are starting to increasingly see a lot of our own customers, our own partners, enterprises that we work with, as actually moving their own applications to the cloud. So why not take the digital workforce as well along with them into the cloud as well? So we at Automation Anywhere have really built an extremely robust channel ecosystem, and we work with many channel partners today. So quite a few of them are actually involved in helping enterprises migrate applications to the cloud. And as a result, they're actually starting to take the digital workforce to the cloud as well. Makes it extremely agile, since agility is what we're talking about now. So from a business agility perspective, the cloud always offers an updated latest technology at your fingertips of an enterprise with zero hassles, right? The biggest benefit of this is that businesses really look at business continuity that they are actually in need of today, right? And that's where the cloud brings that sort of agility to the enterprise, and which is why they're actually moving towards as much as possible towards an agile framework, and the cloud lets you get to that. This shift that we're actually starting to see, where enterprises are spending less on capex to make themselves more agile, financially prudent as well. And like you said, enterprises like banks, for example, who have been very cloud shy, are now looking at bringing the digital workforce and robotic process automation to the cloud. And since you mentioned a hybrid methodology as well, and we are very, very flexible at Automation Anywhere with our own architecture, whether it's microservices architecture, for example, or any other model that we actually follow, helping customers with a hybrid cloud model. Customers have an option to really look at the digital workforce on Automation Anywhere's cloud, or customers have the option to really look at a hybrid cloud model where sensitive enterprises, like I mentioned, could be a bank, could be a financial services company, can have their own private cloud and simply look to us to give them great command packages, great artificial intelligence models, great machine learning models that makes them more and more agile. They spend less on capex. So the OpEx model really is making much, much more sense than ever before. And you spoke about scale. So if you're being agile, right, scaling is not a problem on the cloud. And that's where the cloud is extremely important. And it's a whole new picture altogether, right? So we pride at giving enterprises infinite scaling opportunities, especially when enterprises go towards digital transformation. Now that brings us to a whole new concept of TCO, total cost of ownership. And that's where enterprises, being more agile as they are, don't really have to spend a whole lot when they're really looking at being agile. And that's where we come in to help them scale infinitely through the Automation Anywhere cloud.
Interesting, because I think that's very impactfully articulated, Ganesh, because I picked up quite a few of these, and I've got a, and before I come to the whole concept of fiscal prudence and the overarching concepts of invest today to save tomorrow, I am going to come to you with a few very, very important questions. You spoke about the very concepts of redefinition of operating models, really. I'm going to give you a scenario that is as prevalent as it is today, which is that you've got decomposed workspaces, you've got a discontinued sort of a workforce, plus you've got workloads that are spread across multiple clouds. And finally, when you look at the digital workforce, it's essentially about convergence of the physical and the digital to be able to create greater value for organizations. When you look at all these pieces of the puzzle, in your view, how does automation anywhere? So you've got the distributed workforce at one end, you've got decomposed workspaces at the other end, you've got data capital that is getting created at such an unprecedentedly rapid speed that it is almost unimaginable. And at the center of all of it sits this beauty called automation. How do you help organizations kind of piece these things together so that there is greater value inflection for the organization as it kind of comes back into the space of revival? Ganesh Tyagarajan.
Thanks, Arjun. I think let's divide this into three segments of what an enterprise really goes through, right? So an enterprise today, by and large, has three real processes that they actually look at: front office processes, back office processes, and really a lot of applications which their own employees really use. For example, could be a G Suite, could be an Office 365, for example. And let me dwell on this a little bit because you spoke about physical workspaces as well, right? If you look at the front office is really, think about this as an enterprise really having a lot of employees working to really help customers like you and me when you call them for help, right? These are the classic contact center spaces that any enterprise really has. So the digital workforce on the cloud is extremely important, and it helps any process in the front office to really be automated so that the contact center employees can actually help you with your query and resulting in making sure that their own customer satisfaction metrics are obtained and helps you answer your query much, much faster. So the front office is extremely important. These are spaces physically occupied by employees. And imagine the cloud really helping you and a product like ours helping the front office really get to much faster automation. So let's look at the back office, right? So the back office, there's a ton of applications that are used in the back office. You can look at a Salesforce, you can look at a Workday, for example, you can look at an SAP, any ERP related application
So true.
where you really need a lot of digital workers who can, of course, work with an employee as well in these so-called physically disparate spaces. And again, the cloud actually comes in to help automate a lot of these back office processes as well. Now, you can have, let's say, a procure to pay process or an order to cash process or a process that has to run 24/7 without any human intervention. And these could be cloud workloads, like you mentioned, in multiple different clouds, could be in the same data center, could be anywhere. The digital workforce is really critical here to piece all of these together. And I can't think of a better example than having the digital workforce on the cloud simply to help employees who are in the front office or simply processes that run in the back office. Now, thirdly, if you look at employees in an enterprise using, let's say, applications to make themselves more productive, right? Let's like the G Suite, for example, or Office 365. If you can have some of these plugins which you can invoke through these applications and again manage through a cloud, could be sitting anywhere, it just makes their own life much more easier. So you don't have to really focus on mundane meticulous tasks, but you can actually focus on value added things that you want to really focus in your enterprise on a daily basis. So just to sum it up, the front office, the back office, and of course employees using any sort of applications, if you can stitch all these together through the digital workforce, that's what we do at Automation Anywhere, through a product, through a platform that's completely cloud based, hosted on the cloud. And this really helps enterprises automate pretty much any process anywhere. Um, and that in our view is a simple launchpad for enterprises to accelerate their digital transformation efforts. And finally, I'll just add something about a citizen developer program. We pride ourselves in making sure that our cloud-based platform and application can pretty much be used by anybody in the enterprise. It is so simple to use. It's completely browser based. All you need is open up a browser, enter your credentials, click, develop a digital worker, and off you go. So the citizen developer program enables every employee in an enterprise to have their own digital worker and develop a digital worker to essentially automate any mundane repetitive processes for themselves. So we are moving towards a citizen developer program on the cloud, hosted on the cloud, again, aids in the front office, the back office, and helping employees become more and more productive with the applications that they actually use, all managed through the cloud.
Quite fascinating, isn't it? Because I just remembered something that came up about a year and a half back. One of those reports by Gartner Research that actually brought out a prediction. I think this was end of 2000 or mid of 2019, which and Gartner predicted that by 2022, the average human would have 50% more conversations with bots than one would have with their own spouses. Now, when you kind of put it, and that exactly is the articulation of the narrative that you brought to the table, where you're really saying that the convergence of the digital and physical is essentially to help the human workforce, the work source, uh, do better, do bigger, and be innovative. In all of this, Ganesh, there's a very important question. I think Indian industry and of course the global industry for sure has kind of crossed that mark where data were to only be looked at as an enabler. Data capital is now the moot word, and the journey or the endeavor is to leverage data to be a digital asset because data is what is propelling organizations onward to significant growth stories. But there comes a very significant question. The whole security frameworks that perhaps will need to be redefined in this new form of working. So you've got the distributed human workforce, you've got your digital assistant or your digital workforce, both of them working in tandem. How do you at Automation Anywhere cohesively sync in a security framework or a paradigm that will allow for data capital to actually become a digital asset for organizations? Ganesh?
A great question. Before I just start on the security aspects of it, I just want to just add on another terminology for the previous segment where we're really looking at democratization of robotic process automation in every enterprise. It's about making sure that we put the power of automation in every single employee in the organization. Since you spoke about data as well, we want to make sure that every single employee in an enterprise can really look at data which can be structured, data which is semi-structured, and data which is unstructured, right? And this could be sitting anywhere. And the
Anyway,
democratization of RPA really helps in making sure that whatever data that employees are dealing with, structured, unstructured, semi-structured, can actually be automated. And that's where we pride ourselves to say you can pretty much automate anything. Now that brings us to a very important aspects of security, right? If you look at sensitive enterprises, banks, financial services, insurance companies, for example, where data is extremely critical because this is user and consumer data, and this data is very, very sensitive, whether it's in India, whether it's anywhere in the world, right? You want to have a robust platform and a product, especially if you're completely cloud native. You want to make sure that you follow extremely high levels and high standards of security that you want to meet, especially when you're looking at a platform that is set in a cloud environment. So we at Automation Anywhere pride ourselves in saying we are actually exceeding the highest levels of security that's actually recommended for a cloud-based platform. And what does that really mean? So any cloud native, cloud architected product platform that sits on the cloud has to be SOC 2 Type 1 compliant. The security and operational controls that you actually need to set up, especially when you're managing sensitive data, especially data that is structured, unstructured, semi-structured, could sit in the walls of an enterprise, which is very sensitive, has to have a SOC 2 Type 1 compliance. Secondly, you want to make sure that any data that is actually processed has the highest levels of encryption. You don't want data just floating around here and there, which is visible to everyone. So data at rest is completely encrypted through methodologies called, or algorithms that we actually use called AES 256. These are encryption methodologies that we use. Data in transit, where data really goes back and forth between components, are actually encrypted using TLS 1.2, right? This is transport level security. I mean, that's data in motion. If you're actually working in different parts of the globe, you're working with enterprises in different parts of the globe. So products and platforms that are architected, well architected in a cloud-based environment has to be FISMA compliant. What does that mean? If you're working with enterprises in the United States, for example, you need to make sure that you follow strict rules of Federal Information Security Management Act, which comes under the combined hood of a privacy shield framework. And that's applicable in markets like India, it's applicable in markets like Europe, and applicable in markets like the United States as well. When you look at Europe and in bits and pieces in India as well, any cloud-based architected product has to be completely GDPR compliant as well. I mean, you just cannot think of any product which is not GDPR on the cloud and you rapidly help an enterprise towards digital transformation. Never happens. PII, right? Personally identifiable information, again, under the hood of the Privacy Shield framework, especially if you're dealing with sensitive information through banks and financial services. Finally, Automation Anywhere is ISO 27001 compliant from an IT perspective. You have to be, especially when you're dealing with large enterprises, if they're using your product and platform on the cloud. And we pride ourselves in making sure that every line of code that we actually write is completely Veracode verified continuous. That's the highest standards that we actually maintain on our cloud-based product. So we've really covered all aspects of security at the very highest levels of standards that needs to be maintained, managed, and have a robust roadmap moving forward as open as possible, because security is something that keeps evolving and we keep pace with it every day of the hour. And that's how we pride ourselves in innovation and making sure we follow the highest levels of security and standards, especially through our platform and products that are completely cloud-based.
Very, very, very well narrated, because I do have a view of the clock, Ganesh, and I do realize you've got a busy day ahead. But I've got to quickly check with you on two very, very important things. The first really is with a view to the future, as Indian organizations move forward more confidently in more robust fashions. How is the innovation engine at Automation Anywhere kind of keeping pace with the needs and requirements of Indian industries in a tomorrow that is, well, really and truly reimagined realities of sorts, given the backdrop of the last 8 months, 9 months that we've gone through? What's your view?
Enterprises in India, are very close to our heart. We pride ourselves in the Indian market. We work with banks, we work with financial services, we work with healthcare companies, we work with life sciences, and so on and so forth, manufacturing, supply chain, you name it. We want to make sure that, one, before I move to the innovation aspect of it, we want to make sure that the total cost of ownership for enterprises working with us in India are as low as possible. And we understand the sentiments of enterprises in India. Many of them want to reduce their capex costs. They want to make sure the maintenance costs are as low as possible. When they start to implement a digital workforce to really move forward towards digital transformation, the idea is to make sure that they don't add any infrastructure to scale, especially in a cloud-based environment, because it's completely managed and maintained by Automation Anywhere. Enterprises in India, we want to make sure they don't need an army of IT folks and personnel to manage a platform. In fact, one of our partners, Ernst & Young, conducted a recent study. Licensing is extremely economical with Automation Anywhere, especially in the Indian context. It's 30 to 40% cheaper than the rest of the products that are available over a 3-year period if you really look at it. Development and deployment is about 20 to 30% cheaper than the rest of the products in the market, again, over a 3-year period, bringing your TCO down. So for every dollar that you invest, you get about close to $2.1 as a return of investment, specifically on the cloud. Now, why is that? Because we pride ourselves in innovation again. So if you really look at our roadmap on where we are absolutely a cloud native product. We will continue to heavily invest in making sure that enterprises in India as well continue to work with us. We want to make sure they understand the cloud first methodology, especially given the fact that it's all about low TCO for them. It's no longer about a CapEx model. Indian enterprises can move towards the OpEx model. And the whole world really is gravitating towards hyper automation. And that's where Automation Anywhere with our cloud-based product and platform are converging more and more towards artificial intelligence on the cloud, bringing in advanced machine learning concepts, helping enterprises in India look at semi-structured and unstructured data that's very, very difficult to automate. It stands within the hidden walls of an enterprise. You will actually see us looking at more and more processing of unstructured data using NLP. This is moving more and more towards hyperautomation. So we've been innovating for 14, 15 years, and we're just not going to stop. But moving towards hyperautomation on the cloud is one of our main goals, to make sure that enterprises can not only look at structured data, but they will have to move forward to adopt artificial intelligence models, newer models that are coming in machine learning, and that's where our innovation as well will move forward as part of our roadmap.
Brilliant, very powerfully put. But this is really now going to be my last question to you in the segment. Ganesh, is the very fact that given this very wholesome narrative that you brought forward, it also is fairly clear that from Indian industry's evolution, from if you were to look at it from that perspective, uh, anybody who is starting this journey is certainly going to be slightly overwhelmed because, well, at the end of the day, it is a slightly complex journey. And therefore, to this our audience that's listening in today of very senior IT folks from across sectors, what is your essential guidance to them? Three of them, the top three pieces of guidance you would give them when they embark on the automation journey with the cloud native platform as being the foundational element.
This is a great question. IT is very heavily involved in any digital transformation efforts. I mean, most of our customers have been through it. We've learned a lot with them over the last 15 odd years. And we want to start working with enterprises to give them that comfort feel that it's not a huge lift and shift if you do it right from day one. We want to make sure that there are absolutely no maintenance cost involved, because that's where the cloud actually comes in. So enterprises don't really need an army of IT personnel. especially when they're looking at digital transformation using products and platform on the cloud. So you really don't need to add any additional infrastructure to start scaling your enterprise towards becoming more of a digital enterprise or towards digital transformation. Because if everything is managed from the cloud, it's not really that big of a lift and shift, right? And that's the lessons that we've actually learned. That's the innovation that we've actually brought in. We started out as a desktop based product, right? We moved towards
I
being
can
more
say.
of an enterprise based product about 4 or 5 years ago. And since we launched our cloud offering exactly a year ago, you really don't need an army of people to set it up. It's not difficult to set it up. This is completely browser based, like I said. Gone are the days where you need massive infrastructure to host a product and a platform. If everything is completely cloud based, all you need is just a simple enough browser, open up the product, log in with your credentials, like I mentioned, simple, easy to automate. You don't need to add infrastructure. So your total TCO, your total cost of ownership is extremely low. And from an ROI perspective, I know a lot of senior folks listening to me, like I mentioned in my earlier segment, for every dollar that you invest, you're getting about $2 as an ROI. Um, so you don't really need to overinvest. This is not about heavy lift and shifts that will really need to happen. And with automation anywhere, you actually get a wonderful customer success team to help you in this journey. So you actually don't need an army of people to help set up your digital workforce platform. It's already set up on the cloud. The customer success team prides in making sure that they get you started on the right foot. So let me talk about three quick models very quickly. There are enterprises that have worked with us who say, hey, you know what, this is great, but I want to make sure I just use the digital workforce platform in just one business unit to start with, right? Think about this as a trust but verify model where I want to start small. I want to start in just one single shared service. Could be a financial department, could be my HR, for example. I want to see how it really works. The second model really is to look at democratization of RPA, where I mentioned earlier that you want to put your digital workforce into everybody's hands, a digital worker in everybody's hands. That's a model that you can follow. Finally, you can look at, we've got a lot of enterprises who say, look, I want to look at digital transformation on day one. I want to bring cognitive on day one. I want to bring in artificial intelligence on day one. I want to look at RPA on day one. So it's up to you as an enterprise to choose from any of these models, along with a wonderful customer success team that we will help you get set up towards digital transformation in the correct manner right from day one.
And that was nothing short of fascinating, Ganesh. And I must uh, comment on the very intense levels of passion that you brought into the narrative and this dialogue. We are very privileged to have been in conversation and in dialogue with you. Thank you so very much for joining in today.
Thank you, Arjun, and have a good day ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, I, Arjun Vishwanathan, was in conversation with Ganesh Tyagarajan, Vice President of Cloud Channels for Automation Anywhere. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. We'll be back with the next segment in just a jiffy.
That was truly insightful. Thank you, Mr. Vishwanathan and Mr. Tyagarajan, for your valuable views and guidance. Dear delegates, we now bring you a short animation summarizing today's webinar episode. Do please fill out the feedback form at the end of today's event. Here we go.
Powering automation with cloud. How does cloud adoption enhance the value from automation for enterprises? RPA on cloud offers added advantage of lower infrastructure cost, ease of deployment, less maintenance, and lower upgrade costs, apart from security and scalability of their digital strategy. What are the key tactics for achieving optimal outcomes with RPA on cloud? Standardization and automation of the IT environment through an open API model, adopting a modern security posture, working in an agile operating model, and leverage new features and capabilities to drive innovative business solutions. How is automation on cloud helping organizations? Reducing IT overhead costs, scaling IT processes up and down as needed to optimize IT asset usage, improving flexibility of IT with more frequent releases of business features, increasing quality of service to users through the self-healing nature of solutions. Stay tuned for our next episode, Accelerating Automation with Discovery Bots on 2nd December 2020. StrategINK wishes everyone a safe and happy Diwali.
That was indeed a remarkable summary of the benefits and tactics needed to drive successful outcomes from RPA deployments on cloud. Dear delegates, that's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed the second episode of StrategINK's Digital Dialogue Season 3 that we brought you today. Please do take a minute to fill out and submit your feedback form. On behalf of StrategINK and our partners, Automation Anywhere, we thank you for attending and our speakers for enriching us with their insights today. Ladies and gentlemen, the next episode of Digital Dialogue Season 3 will be on the theme Accelerating Automation with Discovery Bots. We look forward to you joining us at 11:30 a.m. on 2nd December 2020 from your favorite PC or smart device for a great online experience. Take care and do celebrate a safe and pollution-free Diwali without crackers. This is Ushma Tyagi signing off on behalf of StrategINK Solutions.